Danny, here's the thing. Your beloved Liverpool, they've signed Florian Wirtz, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, Hugo Ekitike, a combined total in excess of £250 million. We know they're pursuing Isak from Newcastle. They've also opened talks with Palace over Mark Guehi, with a deal worth £35 million being discussed. After last summer's restraint led to a title-winning season, what's brought about Liverpool's radical window transition?
Well, Trent obviously left, so you had to replace him. Diaz wouldn't sign a new deal, so they were looking to bring in someone to have to replace him. The unfortunate passing of Diogo Jota, some of it was necessary. I don't think it was a case of we've got to clear the decks, get fresh players in. It was needs must. Obviously not all of them, but a lot of them you have to bring in numbers. So they've lost 3, gone out 4, and they've only actually brought in 2 in the attacking areas. So they probably need another one, whoever that is. But it's good business. I think the 2 front players look really good. And I think they need another centre-half as well. That's a good one with Gay. I think he's a terrific player.
£35 million, Simon.
It was a byproduct of a year left in his contract, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the only way you get that out...
Is it 1 year left?
1 year left. The only way you get that up is competitive tension, which means more than one club wanting to buy him. So if the only club that's wanting to buy him, that has a necessity to buy him now, is Liverpool, then Palace are a hostage to fortune. In the ideal world...
Well, what do you do as an owner then? If, say, Newcastle want him, but he only wants to go to Liverpool, Newcastle say they'll give you 50, and Liverpool are saying we're only giving you 30.
Well, you're in a difficult position, aren't you? I mean, you try to make the best fist of it that you possibly can. At the end of the day, if you've resigned yourself to selling the player and you resign yourself to the ramifications of that, then you're going to have a little bit of difficulty controlling the direction of travel as to where the player may go. I mean, it's reasonable to say to a player certain things. I'm not sure it's reasonable, irrespective of my tendency to veer into the Bob Lord territory of being the old Burnley chairman and his belief what footballers should and shouldn't do, is that it's not potentially my gift to say to him, you must go there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a difficult one.
I mean, when you cast your mind back, boy, how times have changed. 2022, this was Jurgen Klopp.
So nobody can compete with City in that. You have the best team in the world and you put in the best striker on the market. No matter what it costs. No matter what it costs, you just do it. I know, City, they will not like it. Nobody will like it. You ask the question, but you know the answer. But what does Liverpool need? We cannot act like them. It's not possible. Not possible.
Is that not hard to...
It's just clear, and again you know the answer. There are 3 clubs in world football who can do what they want. Financially. It's illegal and everything fine, but they can do what they want.
Well, Liverpool seem to have joined the ranks. I mean, could there now be an accusation, Danny, that Liverpool are buying their way to success?
There might be from certain quarters. The reality is, if you look at it from a business perspective, the net spend at the minute's about 60 million, isn't it? It's hardly, It's hardly stupid.
I mean, if this was Man City or Chelsea, though, the perception would be different, wouldn't it be, Simon? This is what City do. This is what Chelsea do. They buy and buy and buy.
I think everyone accepts that the bigger clubs spend a lot of money. I mean, what Jurgen Klopp said at the time might have been relevant to a particular conversation. It was inaccurate because clearly clubs can't do precisely what they want. There was governance around. Yeah. Manchester City might have more liquid cash, which means they can make transactions happen, but they still had to be governed by the central governance of PSR or FFP, as it would have been at the time. So that was Jurgen Klopp having a whine about the challenges that Liverpool were probably facing at that particular time and the reasons why they weren't achieving the things that he might have wanted them to achieve, or more likely, he was being judged upon by the questions that he was being asked at that particular time. Liverpool have always spent relatively well. They've
not like this.
No, but they didn't spend...
If they get Isak, that's 200 million on 2 players, Wirtz and Isak.
But clearly they have the headroom to do it. Clearly by winning the Premier League, clearly by the reality of the circumstances they find themselves. They didn't spend any money last year. So if they had spent £175 million last season, and £175 million this season, no one would have said anything. They'd have all gone, oh, okay, wasn't the top club spend £150 million a season? So they just happened to be concentrating it in one season. They were very fortunate that Klopp had assembled such a brilliant squad that Arne Slot could walk through the door and defy the conventional wisdom of it's not my team and go with what was there. And
you see, Danny, with respect, I don't remember you mentioning net spend when it came to Chelsea.
I probably did.
Let's check it out.
I don't think you or I can have the capability of remembering yesterday. Never mind, God knows how many months ago. But I think I think the net spend is relevant to every club.
But it's a very different argument that you're making because everybody spends money. It's a reductive argument because the whole business of football is based upon money. The whole transfer window, the whole dynamic of this industry is predicated upon how much you spend, how much players you buy. And so the difference between the Manchester City argument and, say, the Chelsea argument and even the Blackburn Rovers argument is these football clubs were manufactured out of. I know that City existed before, and I know that they were a club of significance in 1969 when Joe Mercer was the manager and Malcolm Allison was his assistant, and they did great things. But the reality of it is that Chelsea and Man City were brought to life, reanimated, and packaged into something different, which dominated English
I
football.
think it's fair to say
people's money rather than
but the reality of it is that Liverpool have joined the ranks of the big spenders.
I think it's fair
if they
to
get
say,
Isak, they'll have broken the British record twice.
I think it's fair to say that this is unusual for Liverpool.
Sure.
And actually not their normal way of going about it.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, Simon has explained it in terms of the lack of business last summer meant that this summer was always going to be more proactive.
But Liverpool have always spent big. I mean, they spent £150 million on a centre back and a centre half and a goalkeeper.
That was Coutinho.
I understand that. So the difference is that they generated the money through transfers. This time round, they're generating the money through the commercial activities of the football club and some of the transfers.
Yeah, but Simon, at the start of the summer, would you have expected Liverpool to break the British transfer record not once but twice?
Not twice. I think that's fair.
Well, first and foremost, records are broken all the time because the market moves. The value of football has changed. Well, Trevor Francis was bought for £1 million 45 years ago. The transfer fees are now £100 million plus, and they happen with regularity. So the fact of the matter is that the revenues that football's bringing in change the dynamic. There's no point making a British. Rio Ferdinand was bought for £30 million in 2001. Transfer fees are now regularly. Average players are being bought for 40, 50 million quid. So the scale of the market dictates the circumstances in which people spend.
I think the fact that Liverpool have joined the £100 million bracket in buying players is something that surprised a lot of Liverpool fans.
And in the space of 3 years, it's all changed since Klopp.
Why? Because you're in Rome. You can't not be a Roman. Everyone's spending. The biggest clubs are spending huge dough.
I know,
and the only reason that Haaland didn't go for 150 million quid because his agent and Haaland had engineered a situation that there was a release clause which was way below market value.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Right. Danny says he wouldn't have expected it. Would you have expected Liverpool, Simon, to break the British transfer record not once but twice? And they will do. They will do if they get Isak.
No, nobody did.
I didn't have
after a title-winning season.
I don't have any. Well, the conventional wisdom suggests that when you are strong, you strengthen. And if the market price, if you go and buy the best footballer in the country in a position, you pay the market price. So if Liverpool were in for the best player, then if you asked me at the beginning of the summer, if Liverpool are going to buy Isak, an XYZ player, will you be surprised that they break the British transfer record? My answer would be no. Because they were in for the best players.
Liverpool, for years now, apart from Van Dijk and Alisson, the rest of them, you could argue, are players that they brought in at a middle-of-the-road kind of fee and enhanced and worked with them and made them better. They very rarely went for the finished article and spend plus stupid money on players.
They bought Darwin Nunes for 18 million quid.
Well, this Tony, a Liverpool fan who joins us regularly, Liverpool's turnover last season was 700 million, this season 750 million. Danny, here's one though, and one or two Liverpool fans asking me to ask you, if Liverpool secure Isak, and again, sorry, no disrespect to the Newcastle fans listening this morning, is that title done?
I think it gives them a hell of a chance. You know, I mean, you can never say never. The only thing when you bring new players to a big football club, irrelevant of the talent, is how quickly they settle, how quickly they forge partnerships, relationships, how they deal with the pressure of playing for a club that's expected to win every game every week. You can't guarantee that when you sign 5 or 6 that they're all going to do that.
Well, I was going to say, Ekitike, Salah, Wirtz, where does Isak fit in?
Well, Ekitike can play wide. He can also play as a 10. They're going to have, 60-plus games, I would imagine, if they do reasonably well in most competitions. So you can't just have one striker. But yeah, maybe Ekitike might be disappointed in that. I don't know whether they had a conversation with him when they signed him, but he can play. He's a bit more versatile. Isak's a definite number 9. Doesn't play anywhere else. But Isak's more complete than Ekitike. If you were choosing between both, you'd go for Isak.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they get him, in answer to the question, yeah, that gives them 5 forward players who are all very, very good players.
Newcastle tried and failed, Simon, to get Mark Gahey. Liverpool are trying for him. 35 million.
That's
is the fee that's been spoken about. I was going to say, Danny, Simon, if you're parish, what are you holding out for?
I would never be parish. But Liverpool, they tried and failed last year because Palace weren't prepared to sell him. So it wasn't a case of Newcastle were rejected and rebuffed. It was a case of Palace themselves put a figure on it and Newcastle wouldn't go to that figure. And I think it was 65 to 70 million quid. And fair play to them for pushing the envelope. They didn't get the deal done. The player stayed. They won an FA Cup. Commercial value of that was very little to Palace economically, but the prestige of the club is great. Parish has already said, hasn't he, in no uncertain terms, that he accepts the principle of a player isn't going to sign a contract, which is the player's right, and that he is now sitting and looking at a player that's going to go out the door in a year's time for free. So he takes the deal that's on the table. That's the best opportunity for Crystal Palace. And like we said yesterday, the alternative is you back yourself to say that by Guehi staying in the side, we've finished five places up the league. We get another 15 million quid.
Yeah,
it's worth me keeping him. Palace will sell him. Palace will sell him because there's
for 35 million.
If they can get 35 million quid, the challenge for Palace is that at what point does Liverpool push the envelope, knowing that Palace have got a player that can probably walk out in January for 15 million quid, if someone's prepared to pay 15 million quid for 6 months worth of service, or they get the best market price now, which is 35 million quid if it's on the table.
Yeah,
Liverpool operating the way that they do might suddenly think that they can go lower.
Well, this is how Liverpool are operating. Wirtz, Frimpong, Kerkez and Ekitike for a combined total in excess of 250 million quid. And they're after Isak. Has that surprised Liverpool fans? Mark is a big Liverpool fan. Mark, good morning. What's your take on this?
Good morning, yeah. I'm quite surprised that we've gone for this many players. I'm not surprised the left back and the right back. I am not surprised either with Wirtz because with Arnold gone, there's no creativity. But I also think that if you're wanting to win things year after year, the market is demanding that you've got to do this. You've got to keep on going out and you've got to keep on buying the best players. And it all started years ago, didn't it, with Chelsea, when they just had all that influx of money and went out and bought a whole load of people. And since then, the market's never come down. So I think that it's demanding. But what I would like to just sort of say as a little bit extra is, if we didn't have the money, we wouldn't be going out and doing this. So if, aside from all the sales, if we weren't turning over this kind of money, you wouldn't be seeing us going in and getting players like Ekitike, Isak, people like that. It wouldn't be happening.
I've got to say, Mark, Simon's shaking his head here.
But that's not correct characterisation of it at all. Chelsea came in and created an opportunity for themselves and maybe have inflated the marketplace. But Man United were buying Rio Ferdinand for 30 million quid. You had two clubs dominating the landscape, which were Arsenal and Man United, and getting the best players. What Chelsea did, and what Jack Walker did prior to that, quite frankly, in '95, was do the same thing. So the idea that Chelsea started this race to the bottom for transfer fees isn't true. The transfer market was there. It was being spent at. Just the bigger clubs were able to dominate who they could and couldn't get. And now you've got a greater proliferation of wealth and different owners that have got the preparedness to be able to bankroll football clubs to match the expectations of their fans and also to overcome the legacy of the Arsenals, the Man Uniteds, and to some extent the Liverpools that had the ability to pick and choose who they wanted because no one else had the kind of financial might to be able to meet them.
Michael's another Liverpool fan. Michael, is it wrong to accuse your club of buying your way to success this time around?
Well, you could say that, but when you look at where the money's come, it's come from tapping into the resources of the fan base. Because in October, 15 years ago, Liverpool nearly went out of business. And it's only through the due diligence of FSG and doing it a slow burn process. I don't know whether Simon will agree with me on this, but it's been a slow burner. We've not been in this position ever, in my opinion, as a Liverpool supporter. Even when, I forget the guy's name who owned Littlewoods when we won it in 2005.
David
Moores.
Yeah. That's right, Moores. He didn't. He splashed the cash, but not to the extent that we can do now, because I think the Americans have tapped in to the sponsorship opportunities at Liverpool, and people are saying that we're buying the league. 2 years ago, we had Lavia turning us down, Caicedo turning us down, and we bid more money than Chelsea, but we were no pull Liverpool. Now we've got Wirtz at Liverpool, and it made me chuckle when Man City put out the press release and they said, it was too big a deal. And I'm thinking, hang on, you're Man City, and you've got exponential wealth, more than Liverpool have got, backed by a sovereign wealth nation, and you're saying you can't do it because it's too big of a deal.
I think these are great points that Michael's making. I think he's right on it.
But this is nothing to do with the wealth of the ownership. This is to do with the governance of the sport.
No, but we haven't. Michael's right. We haven't seen this before from Liverpool.
No, maybe we haven't. But Liverpool haven't been. If you look at the economics of Liverpool against Man United and the rise of the Premier League, they both started on about 40 million quid, and Man United went like this, and Liverpool stayed pretty on the same level. all of a sudden now, because of the wealth in football, because of the broadcasting deals, because of the commercial opportunities surrounding players, Liverpool have now got £750 million turnover. That is nothing to do with anything other than the commercial value of football now. And because Liverpool are winning the Premier League, they get the most money out of the Premier League. Because Liverpool are going deep in the Champions League, they're getting significant, and the coefficients that are coming alongside that are generating more revenue for them. Because they're playing in other tournaments, because their commercial revenues are through the ceiling, they're able to do this. And if the commercial revenues were like that 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, and that's not just Liverpool, that's football. That's football.
The other thing is they've just won the league without buying. Well, they bought one player, whatever it was. So to say they're buying success, well, they've got success without buying it to a degree.
Yeah.
And now they're just improving that situation.
Yeah.
They're using their success to create more
Of course,
success.
look at the scale of football. When Palace got promoted in 2004, we got 20 million quid. That's what we got for being in the Premier League for one season. You get £110 million now. So everything is grown phenomenally. So it's not surprising that transfer fees, player salaries, and the commercial values of football have gone through the ceiling. And Liverpool have been able to capitalise on that opportunity by producing a successful team, but they didn't spend any money last summer.
Yeah. Jack Grealish. Can he be the real deal for Everton and David Moyes? He's gone there. The deal is done. He was wearing an Everton jersey last night when I saw the news announced, and he is in at Everton and the new stadium and everything else that goes with it. This was Jack on the move.
To be back playing in the Premier League, I think the last 2 seasons I've not really played as much as I wanted to at all. So yeah, hopefully I can come here and play and get my rhythm and show what I'm all about. I think even when I spoke to the manager, he says he wants me to in the final third be creative, and I feel like I want to have that way about me where it's like I was before, where I had no fear. Sometimes you will lose the ball and miss chances, but then also, you want to be able to play that killer pass and have an end product. So that's the main aim. And if I do all of that, I feel like I really will help this club.
It's fair to say, Danny, he's got a point to prove. How strong a motivator can that be?
Huge. Yeah, I mean, his success will be down to his attitude, application, not getting frustrated. The biggest problem, when I went from Liverpool to Charlton, you have to temper your frustration at others who aren't quite at the level of the lads you're used to. But I think Moyes is trying to bring in a different type of player. If you look at Dewsbury Hall, they've already got Ndiaye. I do think he's going to try and play a bit more. As long as Jack's in the middle of the pitch, he's less reliant in the middle of the pitch on others than when he's wide. When you play wide in any side, you're always reliant on others.
Where is he best?
He's best as a 10.
Is he?
With good legs behind him.
Right.
So he doesn't have to concentrate too much defensively. I mean, he's not scared of hard work. I mean, I think that's one thing that definitely did improve at City.
I mean, he says he wants to get back to playing with no fear. Was he playing with fear at City?
I think restriction rather than fear. The restriction you get under Pep, the rules are set, really. Losing the ball often is not something Pep likes. Whereas now he'll probably get more. Nobody wants to lose the ball.
Docker is a player that seems to have taken Jack's position. He's a player that takes on players and takes risks, isn't he?
He is, yeah. But he's a bit more dynamic than Jack.
Did it better than Jack, didn't he? Or for what?
Well, I actually thought Jack's performance in the treble-winning season was outstanding.
Oh, did I?
Offensively and defensively.
Yeah, defensively, I thought he was a different player.
So I think the problem is with Jack out wide is he's not super quick. And I think the wide players now need pace. Yeah. Because the fullbacks are getting quicker. You've got to be really dynamic. I think Pep's gone that way. He brought in Savinho and Doku, both flying machines. If Jack plays as a 10 for Moyes...
Has he got that clever ball in him to play as a 10 in terms of round the corner ball?
Yeah.
Has he?
He can play round corners, yeah.
You said that this move's got a bit of jeopardy to it.
Because I think it has, yeah. But I think the interesting thing is that he was bought for 100 million quid, which has got nothing to do with him. But I don't think he ever really established himself at Manchester City. If you look at his period of time, and I thought he was great in the season where they did the treble. And I remember watching him against Arsenal at the Emirates in that game where Arsenal went toe-to-toe with them. And Jack Grealish showed a different dimension to his game. He worked for the team. I know he came on in that game, but he showed a different dimension to his game. But I think as a £100 million footballer, he never looked like a £100 million footballer. He never swaggered like a £100 million footballers often do. And you
I
think they
he's
would
always had swag.
No, got swagger, but I think that's a different kind of swagger. That's kind of goes with the territory of Jack Grealish because he looks the part. But the actual belief system of a real top player that knows he demands to be in the side, expects to be in the side, and is in the side, and he wasn't at City. And this is now a move. This is not a progression for Jack Grealish. This is, you're going out to Everton. And I like Everton as a football club, and they've got a wonderful new stadium, and that may be a lightning rod alongside Daniel Freakin's ownership to take him into different places. But let's be clear, Everton have been languishing around the bottom of the table, having challenges for the last 3 or 4 years. A lot of it because of bad ownership and bad financial management, but that's where they've been. And they needed to get David Moyes to come in and do what David Moyes does. Now, I made the point yesterday that whether Jack would be given the latitude to do the things that Moyes might want him to do, they didn't do at West Ham. David made a choice at West Ham, and it got him eventually out of the door. And there were players at West Ham that people then began fed up with, which is, hang on, he has got talented players like Paqueta and Kudus that can get on the ball and do certain things, but David didn't want to play that.
That word that you used, Simon, jeopardy, it was interesting on breakfast. Gabby Bonlahor leapt on that with Simon. This was Gabby.
Simon doesn't know him and doesn't know, like, how frustrated he was at not playing. I don't know Raheem Sterling, I don't know Jadon Sancho, I don't know these other players that he's talking about, and maybe he's right with their transfers, it didn't work, but I can tell you something, this is a player who is excited like you wouldn't believe to play football, to train during the week and have a reward at the end of the week of I'm going to be playing. I'm going to be playing in a team that, yes, they've got work to do in the transfer market, but Dewsbury Hall, I really like him, goes into that midfield. You've got Ndi on the left-hand side. They've kept hold of Bramthwaite. Bramthwaite stays on a new contract. You start to look at this Everton team and you're like, okay, this team's going places. Can they get a couple more through the window, especially in defensive areas? But he's going to be thinking to himself, you know what? Yeah, new stadium, iconic club. Look at the players that have played at Everton.
One of the things with Jack that he's going to enjoy is that teams will play Everton and go after them. So Jack's going to get the ball in much bigger spaces than he's used to at City. Because City generally, every game they play at home, you're playing lock defences, low block and all that. Jack's going to get more space to show his stuff. Like when he was at Villa, we saw him being more dynamic and
less of the ball
and playing counter. Yeah, but that's fine. The one thing, the reason I think Jack will succeed is because his biggest strength, and he's arguably one of the best 2 or 3 in the Premier League at doing it, is keeping the ball. He's so strong and good with the ball. What he'll do is he'll give so much space to other Everton players. Now, the one thing where we get obsessed with stats, with forward players, Jack's stats have never been tremendous, even when at Villa. His numbers aren't brilliant. But what he does is he occupies other players so well that other Everton players' numbers will go up. And I know Moisey understands that. So he's not going to turn into 15 goals a season, Jack Grealish. It's not going to happen. But you'll see what I think you'll see is a lot of other Everton players' numbers go up because of what he brings to them. He will be, I guarantee if he stays fit, he'll be Everton's player of the year.
Wowzer. So, Danny, you're going with Gabby Bonlahor, and Gabby's saying really that you're off the mark, Simon, with this one.
Yeah, I may well be. I mean, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. The 2 examples that I gave, I'm assuming
they're good examples. I understand your theory, but
I backed up my argument, and it's not an argument based upon being a contrarian. It's looking at it going, a lot of these times these deals don't work out, and the reasons why is that players are going into different environments, they're going to different clubs, and I use 2 examples. Now, I like Dewsbury Hall, but I don't suppose, with due respect to Gabby, he's seen that much of Dewsbury Hall because he had a breakout season in the Premier League. He played in the Championship and was part of that side that Maresco obviously built. That he then left to go to Chelsea. Took Dewsbury Hall with him. Dewsbury Hall never kicked a ball for Chelsea, barely, a couple of times in the Cheltenham Conference League.
Yeah, played.
So to say that ultimately he's going to be a success at Everton is probably something that might happen.
Yeah, but Gabby's putting you right about Jack.
Well, we'll see. No one's put me right.
What Gabby's saying?
The only person that could put me right about Jack is Jack, not Gabby's opinion.
What Gabby's To be fair to Gabby, I think what he's saying there, because he knows him, is that he's sensing this excitement and desire for him to go and succeed, right?
Yeah.
You could argue that Sterling, nearing the end of going to Arsenal, it was like his only option, and did he really have it in him to want to succeed again?
Maybe. Or
Sancho, we don't know.
We don't know.
But I think what Gabby's saying there is that he senses this desire for him to go, and that is the key for Jack, because his ability is unquestionable.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm not.
You might be surprised with this one.
I've
Will
never
it work out?
Yeah.
I've never believed, and I will retain this belief, that Jack Grealish is anywhere near a £100 million footballer.
That's a different argument.
I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's anything but vaguely resembling what people think he is. I think he's a decent player. Player. I don't think he's a brilliant player. I think he's a decent player, but that's my view.
He is better than what they've got.
Well, that's not difficult. But that's not difficult because Everton didn't have a lot last year, did they?
No.
But then again, Gabby had a glittering career at the top level, and you scored a freak goal at Wembley.
Very true. Very true. But we've also listened to Gabby's opinions on lots of different things. So we'll see, won't we?
We'll see.
And he's excited for his mate.
Yeah.
It's hard to stand back and give an on it when you've got a vested
He
interest.
wants to back out. He wants to side with him, of
But
course.
the object of a conversation, and a frank conversation, is to be objective, not to be biased.
Yeah.
I don't care whether Jack Grealish is successful or unsuccessful. I've given an honest opinion as to the reasons why I think he might not be, and given some substance behind my
So you
argument.
don't think that Gabby's being objective?
Of course he's not being objective, because he wouldn't be talking this way about another player.
I am, and I think he'll do well.
Well, there you are. That's an objective argument.
Yeah.
Gabby's is not, but you're using Gabby as an opportunity to club me with.
Absolutely.
Whereas normally it gets Gabby that gets clubbed. It's like clubbing Bambi when you club Gabby.
So many of you take to watching the show as well as listening to it, of course, and that's fine by us. However you get it is fine by us, and you get it when we get you, and that seems to be the main thing. Anyway, where am I going with that? I'll tell you where I'm going. Back to Liverpool. What is going on at Liverpool? Florian Wirtz, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, Hugo Ekitike, a combined total in excess of 250 million quid. Is it wrong to accuse Liverpool of buying their way to success this time around? Many Liverpool fans, many fans of other clubs getting in touch. It's an absolute scrap to come to air, but we will come to air. At least David will. David, good morning. What do you want to say in this?
Hi, good morning, guys.
Morning.
I just think a lot of it's just a bit of jealousy for rival fans. We have spent a lot of money, but we've recouped a lot of that money, and our success is built on smart recruitment. We develop players like the likes of Robertson and stuff, and also obviously financial discipline that we've done over the years. We haven't had a rich billionaire to come in and back us and just totally throw money at it. Over the years, we've built this, and now we're having the fruits of what we've actually built. So people saying that we're buying success, it's far from the truth. It's something that we built over the years. Shankly built it, Paisley built it with European success, and now Slot's got to start to try and build it by doing this.
I see what you're saying, David. So it's been a bit of a slow burn, mate, and now you're reaping the benefits.
Exactly, yeah. It's over the years of how we've gone about it financially. We haven't been massive spenders, and that's frustrated me, because I've always said about Liverpool, I've been saying to them, I want them to spend money because I feel like we're falling behind by not doing that. But now they are doing it, and they're doing it by what they've done, good financial discipline. And and now it's bearing the fruits by, obviously, we're top of the league and we're in a financial position to spend this type of money. And let's not forget it, we've got the best sellers in the business as well. That are people. We always get decent money for our players like Chelsea, and that just shows how well we're doing at the moment.
Great call. Thanks, David. I mean, this isn't Liverpool as you knew it, Dan.
No.
Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course.
Yeah. Well, I think Michael Edwards, and Richard Hughes have done a sterling job in that respect. I mean, if you're good at what you do, then the players you then need to move on or sell on are always going to have good value. The money they got for Diaz at his age is tremendous, really, when you think about it. He wouldn't sign a new deal. He's a quality player. People want him. And that gives you the capability to then do what they're doing now. So it's positive. I don't see any negative in what's going on at all.
No. Liam, do you? I mean, is all positive, Liam, that Liverpool are spending like this?
100%. I think it's mad that Liverpool are being spoken about in this way of trying to buy success. If you look at the type of players we've signed, we lost Trent Alexander-Arnold, who was a right back and one of our most creative players. So we signed Frimpong and Wirtz. We were struggling at left back, so we signed a left back, and Tsimikas is on his way out. We were struggling up front, so we signed a striker, and Diaz was sold. So why are Arsenal, who are very similar to us in the amount they've spent, not being spoken about like this? Manchester United, who had no success at all last season, why are they not being spoken? They spent, 190 million? So it's insane that Liverpool are being essentially spoken about. I think we're being judged for the player that we haven't signed. We're being judged as though we've signed Isak and as though we've spent all this money. We haven't even signed him. We've needed a centre-back for 3 seasons, so we're signing Gahey for...
Yeah, but come on, Liam, you couldn't have expected... Mate, you could not have expected Liverpool to break the British transfer record not once but twice, and it will be twice if they get Isak.
But it's ifs and whens. We haven't actually signed them. And
no, I agree.
We're being judged as though we have.
Yeah.
And we're being judged. And even if we do, we've also sold Diaz. We've lost another up-front player. And, sadly, we've lost Jota as well. So we are short in that area, despite spending 90 million in that area.
Yeah.
Because we've signed one. So
listen, thanks for the call, Liam. Thank you very much indeed for the call. Now we've got Danny beside us, and there's so much to get through between now and 1. Believe me, there's not enough time, but we'll make time for this. What do you make of Isak's conduct so far, Danny? You played the game at the highest level. He's playing the game at the highest level. I know you love the guy. As a player, yeah, he's magnificent. But despite threats to go on strike, Newcastle are yet to receive an official transfer request from Isak. Despite his poor attitude and behaviour, Newcastle have chosen not to find the player. Newcastle are going along with it at the moment. But Isak's become a problem, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think inevitably when a player desperately wants to move so much, we've seen it many times over the years, that they have to tick certain boxes, which makes them look bad. You very rarely can get out when a club doesn't necessarily want you to go either. You do have to kick up a stink, and you do have to do things that you probably... I've done it myself. I've threatened things that isn't me. But, I felt so...
Did you say you wouldn't play for the club again?
Yeah.
What club?
Charlton. But that was to do with the way I'd been treated, and I felt I was really angry about it then. But looking back, I would change with the way I dealt with that.
I mean, David Ornstein, respected journalist, reported yesterday Isak's adamant he will not play for Newcastle again, even if the window closes and he hasn't gone, he won't play for them again.
It's what he's been told to say, or it's what's been leaked out. We don't know he said it for sure, but if that is true, I would imagine someone saying to him, you've got to make a phone call and say this, because that's kind of what I did. And
what, and apologise?
No, the phone call where you're saying, look, you're going to have to sell me because I'm not going to play for that manager. I'm not going to play for you again.
He says he's got no wish to reintegrate.
Yeah.
So do you agree with tactics like that?
I understand them. No, I can't say I agree with them because it's not the ideal way to go about things, but it's sometimes inevitable. If you think about over the years, Bellamy was the best at it in the business. Bellamy got moves when nobody thought he could get out because he kicked up Scotty Parker did it at Charlton to get his move to Chelsea. Like really kicked up. And sometimes you have to go to that extreme. It's just the way of the world.
Do you?
But if
in the fans' eyes, do you?
If you move it forward,
if you're a Newcastle fan, you love this guy. Now he's doing you in.
The big problem he's got, Isak, by acting like this, or any player who does this.
You said that Declan, incidentally, should have gone on strike to force through his move to Arsenal.
Did I? Well, if he had to do that, yeah. But he didn't have to, did he?
He didn't have to.
No. But that's why I'm saying I understand it. Ideally, you wouldn't want that to happen. The problem you've got, if Isak then reintegrates, you've got this mountain, which is the fans, to get back on side. The reality is it's World Cup year.
Well, what about
he's not going to spend a season. If the deadline goes and he doesn't move, he's going to play.
But if you're a Newcastle United
sorry
player now, Danny, would you welcome Isak back?
Yeah, players aren't like that. Players don't start judging. They understand it. He's good mates with them. You might get one or two who say to him, come on, like, behave differently or deal with it, try and give him some advice. But if a brilliant player comes back into the fold and he's not gone anywhere, you want him back in the team. You don't want him.
What, and all is forgiven?
Yeah. Players to play, they're mates. You don't get that sinister.
Simon, you're smiling.
Because I think we're amplifying the nature of the relationship between players and the importance they attach to it. I said the same thing as Danny said yesterday. The players will welcome him back into the equation. You might have a few players that sit there and think that his behaviour was reprehensible, and then you've got to look at how many. Not many. So I look at it and say the solution will be found. He will probably end up going to Liverpool, but he may go to Liverpool a bit more on Newcastle's terms than Liverpool's terms.
But even if he doesn't, he won't spend the seasons not playing.
Of course he won't.
Did Michail Antonio at the weekend, ex-West Ham, sum up the present-day attitude of top players? As a player, loyalty in the game is really gone. Clubs no longer treat players like they used to either. We're meat to them.
I think it's a generalisation. You can look at different examples. I mean, loyalty, I'd say Bruno Fernandes is a great example, or Harry Kane for all the years he stayed at Tottenham when he could have gone anywhere in the world. There's always exceptions to the rules. I mean, it works both ways. If clubs want to be cynical and yeah, they can treat you like a piece of meat, but players can be selfish, egotistical, self-indulgent. There's good and bad.
But we should never believe a word that comes out of players' mouths, should we? We played some audio yesterday, Danny, of Isak after he scored the only goal of the game against Arsenal. in November at St James's Park. I was there. I spoke to him. I love this place. I love this place.
But it's momentary, isn't it? Because he did love it that day. And he did love it in that moment. So you're momentary, satisfied and content. And all of a sudden...
A few months on.
Yeah, because
I want out this place.
But his progression was so good. And then the desire of others for him is told to him. So therefore he's going to change his... It's a bit... I simplify it. But let's say the best radio station in the world who's got the most listeners in Saudi. You didn't think they wanted you at your tender age. And then they call you next week. You've been saying for years how much you love being on air. And they say, Jim, come and do this show for us. We'll give you $5 million a year. You're gone. And you'll be kicking off to Liam to get out. If he's saying no, you're staying. Not that he would, but yeah.
I've already left.
But you get my point, don't you? You can change your mindset based on how your progression goes and how the demand is for you.
You're not surprised by this, Simon, are you? You've lived through this when you were at the top of the house.
No, but I think Mikel Antonio's assertion is just illustrates a certain thinking.
Well, he's given both sides.
And what kind of thinking?
Well, I think he thinks that perhaps that he wasn't given a new contract by West Ham. And he's equating it to that. I think it's in this day and age where players are being turned into multi-millionaires overnight, they're afforded the kind of luxuries and courtesies and support around them that have never been seen before. I think it's a ridiculous statement to make. I think it's a ridiculous, self-indulgent, narcissistic load of old claptrap. Players are contractually obliged to be fit for purpose, and if they're not fit for purpose, then clubs might take a slightly different attitude towards them. More often than not, if a player is doing his job, doing it brilliantly, very rarely does a club have a problem with them. Very rarely does a club have a difficulty with them. If a player isn't doing his job, yeah, he might get compartmentalised, he might get put in his place, he might get told to do his job better. In football terms, that's being treated like a piece of meat. In the real world, where everybody goes to work and gets told their life stories every now and again if they don't do their jobs well, that's the reality of being effectively employed by someone else. So when Mikel Antonio trots out that load of old rubbish, it tells me what kind of person he is, and I'm disappointed by it because I think he's better than that. He had a very good run at West Ham. You know, there were times I understood where he wanted to leave West Ham because there were certain circumstances in his personal life where he needed more money and he was trying to engineer moves out the door. Where was his loyalty then? The fact that West Ham came back round again and gave him what he needed to be able to supplement the finances he needed in his private life is a different dynamic. But to suggest that somehow you can make this conversation, I would imagine, as an assumption on my part here, that it's based upon the fact that he didn't get a new contract at West Ham. West Ham didn't crash his car. He did.
Well, we've also
he put himself in that situation.
Look, Simon, you're right, because we've seen how many times over the years superstar play. I mean, the way Gerrard left Liverpool, he wasn't particularly happy with because he didn't get what he wanted. You know, I think Lampard had a similar thing at Chelsea, and even JT to a degree. You know, it's like players want to.
It's entitlement.
Well, yes and no. They're individual cases, but.
Isak's in between a rock and a hard place if Liverpool don't come in with an improved offer, isn't he?
He's in a very difficult place, but it's climbable, that mountain of discontent that he's now created. Because I'm telling you now, if he doesn't go anywhere and he goes back in the team and bangs 5 goals in 3 games, do you think the Newcastle fans...
That's also why you haven't got direct quotes. That's also why you haven't got transfers.
It's hearsay, isn't it?
It's hearsay, because he'll everything in this conversation is row-backable. He will row back from it. He will say, that was a misinterpretation. That was a misunderstanding. Yeah. My agent was overzealous. Yeah. You know, obviously Liverpool turned my head, but I'm very happy to be here at Newcastle until the next opportunity comes around next summer. So everything is overcomable. Christ almighty. This is just a football team and football players that will be reintegrated if they score goals or don't score.
The two of us will be staying together as Danny heads off to Liverpool, and he will probably team up with talkSPORT's chief football correspondent up there, Alex Crook. Alex in Liverpool this lunchtime, because Mr. Crook, we're talking about the Premier League launch. What does that involve?
We are, yeah. Good afternoon from the Titanic Hotel in Liverpool, of course, home city of the Premier League champions of last season, and we've got the dignitaries from the Premier League here this afternoon. I'm going to get a few minutes with Richard Masters, Chief Executive of the Premier League. No doubt Manchester City's 115 charges, and when we might hear the outcome of those will be high on the agenda. Howard Webb is going to talk me through the rule changes for the new season, including the fact goalkeepers will be punished if they hold on to the ball for more than 8 seconds, with a corner given to the opposition team. We're going to be speaking to Ian Rush as well, Liverpool legend, and the former Manchester City and Liverpool goalkeeper David James to get his say on which of his former clubs are best equipped to win the title once more.
Alex, you being you, I know you've been busy before the launch gets underway proper. You've been on your phone. I cannot tell you the number of Newcastle, the number of Liverpool fans are in constant touch here. What is the latest? Is there one with Alexander Isak?
Well, no real change in that situation, Jim. Obviously, Alexander Isak has made it abundantly clear now to Newcastle that he wants to move, he wants to join Liverpool. They're waiting, I think, for the nod from Newcastle. They've got a replacement lined up, and therefore they'll come in with a fresh bid. Some dominoes are starting to fall into place. Bournemouth are looking for a replacement for Dongo Ouattara. That would enable Ouattara to join Brentford and free up Johan Wissa to make that move to Newcastle. I don't think he's really the Isak replacement. I think they'll need a second striker, maybe a big name striker, to come in and fill what would be a considerable void. What I can tell you in terms of positives for Newcastle, they completed the signing of Malik Chow, a centre-back from AC Milan last night. He's a player that's been on their radar for several years now, so I know they're really pleased up at St James's Park to get that one over the line, and we're expecting their interest in Aston Villa midfielder Jacob Ramsey to ramp up as well. He's a player that I'm told Villa are willing to cash in on to help with their FFP situation, not necessarily in terms of Premier League PSR, but to ensure they stay on the right line of UEFA financial rules. So we expect movement there in the next 24, 48 hours.
Alex, let me throw that at Danny. Danny, Jacob Ramsey for Newcastle, potentially. What's your take?
I like him, yeah. He's one of the few players who's very, very good moving with the ball, going past people, glides with the ball. He's got good acceleration. He's had a problem staying fit, but he's a super talent. Don't think Villa fans would be particularly happy with that one.
Yeah. What else is bubbling under, Alex? Because obviously now we are where we are, the 13th, the 12th, 13th of the month. It really starts cranking up towards deadline day itself. You and I know that. Plenty of experience of it. Who do you think the movers and shakers are going to be going forward?
Well, I think there's a lot of clubs, Jim, who've kept their powder dry to this point. It seems to be that the big hitters and those newly promoted teams, and Sunderland in particular, who've dominated the market so far. Not much movement from the likes of Fulham or Crystal Palace, but we expect that to change. And Leeds United as well. Daniel Farke has been crying out publicly for a new number 9. We know they're interested in Rodrigo Muniz at Fulham, so are Atalanta over in Italy, but I think Fulham would be reluctant to lose him so late in the window without a replacement coming in. One player who looks set for a move to Leeds, though, is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I reported a couple of days ago that this was one to keep an eye on. They held talks earlier in the summer when I think Calvert-Lewin's wage demands were much higher. Obviously, he's looked around, he's assessed his options, he's gone back to Leeds, and a medical has been booked. Leeds fans, I think, are a little bit underwhelmed by that, given Dominic Calvert-Lewin's injury record. But if he can stay fit on a free transfer, it might not be the worst signing in the world. In terms of Crystal Palace, Liverpool, we reported yesterday, had held exploratory talks for Mark Gay, so we're keeping a close eye on that one. But he's got a big decision to make, and I'll throw this at Danny Murphy. Obviously, Liverpool at any time, but particularly having just won the Championship, they've spent big money to strengthen this summer. They're a difficult team to turn down, Danny, but you've got Virgil van Dijk there, you've got Ibrahima Konate. They're going to be Liverpool's first-choice centre-back pairing when fit. Is it a risk in a World Cup year for Mark Gay to go to Anfield and possibly be third in line?
Well, it depends how confident he is in himself, because the reality is, with Konate having 1 year left, there's a good chance that Liverpool might try and cash in on him in January if Gay comes in. But even if they keep him, there's going to be 60-plus games. Virgil's another year older. They very rarely can give him a rest. That will allow them to do so in a more comfortable place, because Gay's terrific, pace, experience, been captain at Palace for a couple of years. So I don't think the amount of games is going to be a problem. And also the long-term picture for him, he'll probably think that he's going to be playing with him after Konate leaves. You know, he's probably looking at it that way, right? I know he'll want to play in the World Cup, but I think he will anyway. I think he'll get enough games. I don't see that as a problem now.
Alex, actually, just before you joined us, the three of us were in discussion here about Bournemouth virtually selling the heart of their defence, Zabani to PSG, Housen to Real Madrid, and Kerkes to Liverpool. What's the latest there? Because they are going to have to get names, get bodies over the line.
Yeah, they're another team that expect to be busy in the final weeks of the window. Obviously, they lost Milos Kerkez to Liverpool as well. They replaced him pretty quickly with Adrien Truffert coming in, the French left-back. I might be speaking to him later today for talkSPORT as well. And they've got their Zabani replacement, second most expensive signing in their history, Diakate, a centre-back coming in from Lille in France. And they're in talks, I'm told, with Bayer Leverkusen for Amin Adli. At the moment, I think there's a big gap in valuation between what Bournemouth will want to pay and what Bayer Leverkusen are asking for. But again, that's part of that jigsaw puzzle, that if they get that signing over the line, then Ouattara would be allowed to go to Brentford, Wissa to Newcastle, so on and so forth. So I don't fear for Bournemouth. I understand they've lost a lot of their first-choice defenders from last season, but the recruitment model has been so good in recent seasons. I would back Bill Foley, who I know you're a big admirer of, Jim and Simon, to get it right, and I think Bournemouth will be just fine.
Yeah, really enjoyed listening to your chat with Bill Foley earlier on, Alex, a chat you did some time ago. Finally, Donnarumma, giant of a goalkeeper at PSG. It's au revoir from them to him. Not so much a biento either, because I think he's disappearing somewhat under a cloud. But what are we talking? Manchester City?
Yeah, they look the most likely at the moment, Jim. I think, again, they need certain things to happen. We know there's interest from Galatasaray in Ederson. I'm told they've offered him a Turkish record wage fee to make that move. And I don't think Manchester City will necessarily stand in his way. He didn't have a brilliant season by his standards last year, and obviously he's another year older. They've got James Trafford coming in, who they see as a long-term successor. But this just might be an opportunity in the market that maybe they didn't expect to arise, that if Ederson goes, they get the opportunity to sign someone who, for me, was the best goalkeeper in the world in the second half of last season, played a massive role in PSG winning the Champions League. He was brilliant at Villa Park when Villa were trying to come back into that knockout game. He was brilliant in both legs against Arsenal. And this has been a very quick divorce, if you like, isn't it, from Paris Saint-Germain? I thought his statement was very heartfelt and very honest, and Luis Enrique has obviously responded by saying, this is my decision, I want to go in a different direction. The one thing I think would count against him in terms of Manchester City, Donnarumma, as brilliant a shot stopper he is, he's not terrific. He's not number one with the ball at his feet, and obviously Pep Guardiola usually likes his goalkeeper to play out from the back.
Okay, Alex, not for the first time, thanks so much for your contribution, mate. Hope it all goes well for you at the Premier League launch. Donnarumma, what's your take on that, Danny? Is he a top level goalkeeper that would do well here in the Premier League for City?
He's an amazing goalkeeper. Huge presence, but I find it bizarre that they've just gone and spent the money on Trafford, and then they'll bring him in and he'll be sat on the bench. I don't see it. Where's that leave him? I'd be interested to see how that develops. But yeah, Donnarumma's better than Trafford.
I wouldn't expect Simon Richard Masters, top man at the Premier League, to come out with anything new regarding the charges facing Manchester City. Would you?
No. I mean, it's a difficult question to ask, because you know you can get a formulaic answer. I mean, you can load the question and say what level of competence was deployed in allowing an independent panel to take this amount of time. That question would be nice to ask him, to get him right between his eyes. But Masters is a polished marketeer that will just answer the question the way he wants to answer it, which means we'll get no insight about anything.
We'll bring you more insight about everything tomorrow from 10, especially with the man Jordan beside me. Danny, I know you're off to Liverpool. I hope it goes well with Arne Slot. Danny in conversation with Arne Slot later on today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow, actually.
First thing tomorrow, and then we'll hear some of that on the show, I do hope, before we go at 1 o'clock tomorrow.